And Donna over here too. Donna, good to see you. Look at this crew. It's a fabulous crew. All right, let's give it another. So I want to close this thing out so I can actually see everyone a little bit better. All right. Oh, look at this. This is fantastic. Okay. So before, let's see. How can I get numbers? It's a good, Doug, that's a really good question, but we'll get it answered. We will get it answered. How about a little blessing? Let's soak ourselves in Torah before we get started. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot divrei Torah. Amen.
Amen.
So did that sound off to anybody else, right? Because when you do that on the Zoom, little side note. So one of my best friends, his son was just bar mitzvah, but we weren't able to go. All of our crew from rabbinical school. He's a rabbi in Scottsdale, at Merle's new congregation, actually. So he had us record. He had us record us, like all of our friends, doing the blessing before the chanting of Torah, but he recorded us all together on a Zoom. So it all sounded like this. And we were like, look at, but he showed that video. He like showed the entire outtake in the middle of the, it was bananas. It was bananas, but it was also really beautiful. Anyway, okay, here's a question. Who here enjoys cooking? Who here enjoys cooking? Enjoys cooking. Okay, enjoy. Okay. Who here enjoys baking? Who here enjoys baking? Lynn, you enjoy baking? Warren, you kind of enjoy baking?
Just bread.
Just bread. Okay. Lynn, you enjoy baking? Lynn, what do you enjoy to bake? What do you enjoy baking?
I like to bake cookies, and I like to bake challah on Shabbat.
Bake challah, bake cookies. So maybe you get, and did you raise your hand for cooking as well?
Huh?
What do you like? What do you like to cook?
I like to cook stews and soup.
Stews and soup. Okay, this is perfect. Ooh, this is perfect.
Big pots of stuff.
Yeah, big pots of stuff. Okay. What is the difference? Here's the question. Here it comes. We had, I had a purpose with the asking of this. Warren, don't feel left out. I'm good. We're good. We'll get to you too. I enjoy breaking the bread. That's nice. But we got cookies over here. Lynn's doing cookies. So we're gonna talk about the cookies instead. Is that okay with you? Anyway, I'm like talking to you as if I'm like looking at you on my screen, as if you could see that that's where I'm looking. Anyway, okay, Lynn, what is the difference between cooking stew and a successful stew versus baking cookies and successful, delicious cookies?
Well, I find with baking, you have to really follow the recipe pretty carefully.
Okay.
And with stews, you can be imaginative and do all kinds of things.
And do all kinds of things, right? All right. Ooh, this is fabulous. Why are you able to be more imaginative with cooking, but you have to be very specific with your baking? Why? Why is that?
It'll come out really nasty if you don't bake it right.
But why? Okay. It'll come.
Baking is just a whole different thing because
tell us more about that.
More science.
What does that mean?
More chemical reactions, more science, more, I don't know if it's physics, but it's certainly the chemical reactions, the baking soda, temperature, pressure, all those things, much more precise in baking.
You have to have the same.
If it doesn't come out right, it's not going to look right, and it's not going to taste right.
Right.
Does it come out right? It's not going to look right. It's not going to taste right.
The wet ingredients and the dry ingredients make a huge difference. They have to be the right. They have to be in the right proportion.
The right proportion.
Right.
Does it have to be in the right order as well?
Sometimes. General, yes.
It depends.
Yeah, sometimes. General order in baking.
I'm thinking. Okay.
Yes.
So let's say somebody wants to make the cookies.
I'll call her back. I'll take it.
There you go. So say somebody wants to make the cookies, but they're not a baker. They are a soup maker or a stew maker. And they just come in there, be like, yeah, I'm just gonna, do my soup. We're just gonna go crazy and have a really fabulous time. I'm gonna be throwing it. What's gonna happen to those cookies?
It's gonna be a mess.
It's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be a disaster. It's gonna terrible. Yeah, it's gonna taste terrible. All right. Do you remember the story a couple of weeks ago of Nadav and Avihu, who was Nadav and Avihu? Do we remember who Nadav and Avihu were? Anybody?
Joshua's sons.
Okay, so what happened to them? Two of Joshua's sons, right? Two of Joshua's sons. What happened to them?
They were killed by God.
They
Why?
brought strange fire.
They brought
used
strange fire.
fire.
They came in here, they were like, well, do we really got to follow these directions on how we're going to offer up to God? Let's just go and throw stuff in a little bit here, a little bit there, right? Creating this kind of stew. And what happened? They were supposed to be baking cookies. Instead, they come in here trying to do the stew. And what happens? God. Okay. This week, this is, I have to tell you, this is one of the most challenging at first Torah portions when Bar Mitzvah students get this, because this week's Torah portion, Pekudei, is the most detailed of portions describing the construction of the Mishkan, the traveling sanctuary. The entire portion is just details about the amount of this. This is what I'm going to bring it up. You're going to see. I couldn't even, like, when I was working with this, as you know, sometimes I like to break them up into sections, or we talk about little bits and pieces. Look at what happened to me. Look at what happened to me in my preparation today. I'm going to share my screen in a sec. Get ready. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, I gotta make it bigger. I know people like to see this a bit bigger. Get ready. I'm gonna share my screen. Lisa, as I'm trying to share my screen, go ahead with your question. Lisa.
Hi, I'm sorry. Yeah, I came in at the end, so this may not fit, but I wonder, is there any room for the fact that if somebody doesn't know how to do something exactly, there isn't value in trying it?
Well, you know what, Lisa? You know what? So you said that you came in a little late with it. You actually came in a few weeks late, because that is a phenomenal point when debating whether or not Nadav and Avihu should have gotten for going in there with their quote unquote strange fire. I love it.
Okay.
And you are absolutely correct. I believe anyway. It's like, it's like, I'll tell you what, have any of you watched that show on Netflix? And if you haven't, you have got to watch this show called Nailed It. Have you ever seen Nailed It? Okay, yeah. Nailed It is a baking show. It is, look it up. It's phenomenal. It's hysterical, it's fabulous. It's a baking show, and the contestants are three people who know nothing about baking, and they have to make these really beautiful cakes and cookies and really intricately detailed and whatnot, and they're being judged on the way it looks and its taste. And it's bananas disaster. But how are you supposed to learn if you're not always trying? So, Lisa, the way we talked about that before was, what was their intention beforehand?
I see. Interesting. Got it.
But that is, Lisa, let me tell you, that is the exact right question to ask.
Okay,
the exact right question to ask. All right, check it out. So normally I like to break things into sections, but check this out. Look at this. What does this say? Oh, there's one section. Look at me. Nothing. No breaks. Look at that. We got one break because then I said I had enough and I wrote down 32 through 42 is just details about the tabernacle and more clothing. And then I got one line, which is fabulous. And then check it out again. 40, 1 through 38. Boom, boom, boom. No breaks, no breaks, no breaks, no breaks. All the way to the end of the Parshat and really the end of the book, the end of Exodus. We finish Exodus. So we're going to talk about why I did that. All right, here we go. I'm just going to read some interesting things to you. And I want you to keep that story in mind of Nadav and Avihu while I'm reading this to you. And I want you to keep in mind the difference between baking and cooking. All right, here we go. I'm just gonna do this for us. Can everybody see this okay? Do you need me to make it bigger?
No, it's fine.
Fine, fabulous. Okay, these are the records of the tabernacle of the pact, which was drawn up by Moses' bidding, the work of the Levites under the direction of Itamar, son of Aaron the priest. Now Bezalel, son of Ur, son of Hur of the tribe of Judah, had made all that God had commanded Moses. At his side was Oholiab, son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan, carver and designer, an embroiderer in blue and purple and crimson yarns and in fine linen, all of the gold that was used for the work. In all of the work of the sanctuary, the elevation offering of gold came to 29 talents and 730 shekels by the sanctuary weight. The silver of those communities who were recorded came to 100 talents and 1,775 shekels by the sanctuary weight, a half shekel a head, half a shekel by the sanctuary rate for each one who was entered into the record from the age of 20 years up to 603,550 men. The 100 talents of silver were for casting the sockets of the sanctuary and the sockets of the curtain, 100 sockets to the 100 talents, a talents of socket. And of the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for the post, overlay for their tops and bands around them. The copper from the elevation offering came to 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. Of it, he made the sockets for the entrance of the tent of meeting, the copper altar and its copper granting, and all of the utensils of the altar, the sockets of the enclosure round about, and the sockets of the gate of the enclosure, and all the pegs of the tabernacle, and all of the pegs of the enclosure round about. Oh, my phone is ringing. I don't even know if you could hear that. All right, so what is going on here? That is
Baking.
basically 10 lines of what? What do we even talk about there? What's even going on here? 10 lines of what?
Building materials, blueprints.
Sort of not even building material. This is just like, I'm going to use, it's about the money. It's about, I collected this money and I'm going to use this gold for this. I'm going to use this gold for that. I'm going to use the silver for this, but not for that. I'm going to use this much for the silver for this part, this much of the silver for that part. What is the purpose here of giving us the details of even the specific amount of money that's going to be used for each piece? So this whole section is just about the money. We haven't even gotten into the design yet. Get ready for this. Get ready for this part. Now, 31 lines. Get ready for this. 31 lines just about their clothing. 31 lines of detail just about the clothing of the blue and the purple and the crimson yarn. Then they also made the service vestments for the officiating in the sanctuary. They made Aaron's sacral vestments as Adonai had commanded Moses. The ephod was made of gold and blue and purple and crimson yarns and fine twisted linen. They hammered out sheets of gold and cut threads to be worked into designs among the blue, the purple, and the crimson yarns and the fine linen. They made for it attaching shoulder pieces. They were attached as it two ends. They decorated bands, and it was upon it. It was made of pieces with gold and blue and purple and crimson yarns and fine twisted linen. Right? Gold and blue and purple and crimson yarns, fine twisted linen, gold and blue, over and over and over and over and over again. They just keep repeating it. And even the way I'm saying this right now might be making you a bit anxious. Like, why are you being so loud? Why you just keep repeating it? Why are you saying it so quickly? There's a purpose to the madness. There's a purpose to the madness right now. All right, hold on. Again, breastplates, They were talking about the same pieces over and over and over again. Repetition, 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 details, 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 repetition, repetition. What is, and here's the next thing. What is the, we'll get to that. What is the purpose of this? Why so repetitive and detailed? Why so repetitive and detailed? Thinking about in terms of what happened to Nadav and Avihu and baking versus cooking. Why so repetitive and detailed? Let's think about it in terms of what happened in Nadav and Avihu and cooking versus baking. Why so repetitive? Why so detailed? Brad, go.
Well, I'm probably on the wrong track here.
Yeah,
but,
can you just time out for a second, Brad? Why do you always say that? Why you always? What you say? Are you trying to lower our expectations from the gold that you always share with us every week?
Come on.
Here we go.
Well, you know what struck me was the very first line of what you read,
Okay.
where they talked about a record, the desire to keep a record. And why do we keep records? I mean, there's a reason for that. We keep them for the future, so that somebody in the future looking back will want possibly all these details if they have to do it again, or if they want to understand what was involved in the past. So it's the word record that stood out for me in all that you read.
I love that. You know what that reminds me? I love that. You know what that reminds me of? Trying to recreate like Bubby's mandel bread. Bubby writes it down. She's like, just throw in some sugar. Bubby, what does that mean? Throw in some sugar, right? So it's not even, all the detail is not there just for Nadav or for Bezalel and for everybody building it. It's not even for the people there, I think is what you're saying. It's not even for them. Wow. It's for future generations. This is fascinating. See what I mean, Brad? Why you always got to qualify your stuff before you share? It's like you're lowering our expectations, because that was beautiful. Look at all these hands in the air. Thank you, Brad. I got David and then Merle.
Thank you. It's interesting how certain things, like say the law of kashrut or the idea of kashrut, isn't that only in one phrase in the Bible? Like
Yes.
Don't boil a mother's kid in,
Wow,
in
I
her
love
milk.
this.
So
Yes.
you have the whole laws of kashrut that are interpreted. They all flow from one sentence. With Nadav and with the two guys who did the incense.
Nadav and Avihu.
Right. Yeah, excuse me. I have a mental block.
Good.
They lit incense, a foreign flame, and there was no real detailed explanation. Those are important things, more so even kashrut, of course. Well, but then this is so detailed, and I don't know the answer why. I'm just bringing it up. I was just wondering about why that is so. And even the 10 Commandments, if you have the Decalogue in simple sentences, what do those all mean? And thou shalt not kill. Well, that means really thou shalt not murder. So it's I don't know if it's a paradox. It's something that's very interesting.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Yes, because you're right. Like all of our literature after that, right? You have Mishnah and Talmud, and then Shulchan Aruch, and right. All of these things are based on extrapolating and trying to get to the detail, right? Get to the detail of kashrut, don't boil a calf in its mother's milk, of the commandments and breaking them down and trying to get to what is the true meaning, right? Those are just given to us, and it's our responsibility then to try and break those down and get to the details, but not here. So that much more so, why make this so detailed if all of those other things, the way that we're supposed to live our life, right, based on on David, what you were saying, those are the things that we're supposed to, the path to live our life, on how we live our life is more general, and we have to be the ones who cook the stew and try on it versus the detail here, right? I think that is a paradox. So what does that say even more so about this? I'm going to go Merle and then Lisa.
I think that this is the recipe for building the Mishkan, but also they're trying to prove to God they can do it right. That they have the recipe, the money's got to go to certain places for certain items, and they're going to build it right. And in addition to what, I don't remember, I guess it was Brad, creating this recipe that we keep for the future.
Yes, I love that. But the thing is, though, Merle, respectfully, I'm going to say the Israelites, I don't think that they were showing, look, we can do it right, because their hands are being held the entire way. Their hand is being held the entire way.
Do they know that they're doing this, or are they doing it because that's how they have to figure it out?
Because that's how they.
I mean, I screwed up a recipe years ago.
Okay.
And it came out so good, and I have never since then. I mean, Sharon was a newborn, so I've never been able to figure out what I screwed up to make that recipe so good.
Fascinating.
So
Okay.
I'm just thinking that when you talk about baking and cooking, that they're trying to create what they need for now and do it right with whatever orders they might have been given, which to me would be the recipe. And yes, it's for the future, but they have to get it right for now so that they don't screw up whatever they're doing.
Yes, it's for the future, but they also got to get it right for now. So you got to get it right the first time so it doesn't get so watered down for the future, right? So that the future isn't constantly making the same mistake. Wow, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I like that. Okay, do I have two hands? Let's see here. Two people. Oh, Phyllis and Warren, go ahead.
Well, a couple things.
Please.
For me, repetition helps me learn. And so the repetition here, I think, is important because you don't want to get it wrong. And in baking, or building, if you get something wrong, the whole thing may fall apart. So I think those are maybe two reasons why we see what we see when we read it.
That's a fascinating point, but now let's try and let's now use that with the other ideas that came about with kashrut and the following of commandments. If they're not laid out so detailed, why wouldn't those be laid out so detailed if that's the way we're supposed to actually live our life versus this is something that we're just really supposed to build? Right, because based on your idea, which I totally agree with, Warren. I mean, because you're absolutely right. It's the repetition. Practice makes progress, as I like to say, or as Emma Lovewell, my favorite Peloton instructor, likes to say, practice makes progress, not practice makes perfect. Such thing. Brad. Oh, sorry, Warren. I apologize. Hold on, Brad. Warren, finish your thought.
Kind of an initial. The Mishkan is like this first big, wonderful effort. And maybe it was important in this initial effort that detail was that important. I'll just throw that out.
I like that. So this is this is the foundation right here. It's not even the mitzvot and whatnot. This is the foundation from which to be able to explore the mitzvot, to be able to explore. I like this. To be able to explore.
I'm gonna say this is the base for everything. This is laying the base, and this is the way that God is going to be connected to the community.
So you want to get that right to stuff. I like that. This is fantastic. Oh, we got a bunch of hands. Okay, I'm going to go Brad, then I'm going to go Ben, then I'm going to go Merle, then I'm going to go David. So Brad, Ben, Merle, David.
Yeah,
and
Rabbi, I I'm beating a dead horse here, but coming back to this idea of a record, keeping
Yeah,
a
man.
record, that word in, I don't know what the Hebrew word for that is, but does it occur elsewhere in the Torah? Do we ever hear elsewhere about the reason that this is being said is to give a record of something?
So Pekudei means records, right? And yes, the
that's
name
the
of the
name
Torah
of
portion
the
itself. Yeah,
Oh,
Ele
okay.
Pekudei, right? Ele Pekudei Mishkan. So
But
these are-
does that happen elsewhere
Yes,
in the
absolutely.
Torah where it says the reason that we're doing this is to give a record, to provide
Yes.
a record?
It does
Hmm.
often. This is a beautiful point.
Okay.
It's a beautiful point.
Rabbi, this may be way off base, but I remember back in my college days, very long time ago, my fraternity, we had a secret handshake, and you had to learn that and do it right. I mean, it had to be perfect, and it was that attention to detail before you could really be a member. We had a lot of other rules that weren't as important, but that handshake was important. Why? Well, just because attention to detail, you know. You could do that right. We figured you could figure out how to be a good brother.
This is good. So again, like what Warren and Phyllis were saying, this idea of a foundation, building this foundation from which to, theoretical and literal foundation from which to jump and explore and try, and that's beautiful.
But it didn't really matter that much in the scheme of things. Also.
Whoa! Now you're throwing in some other.
Because you really had to be a brother. The handshake was you had to live a life of brotherhood.
So they're interconnected. Beautiful. I like that. Okay, this is good. This is good. So who did we say after Ben? We said, did we say Merle, then David, and then Risa?
I'm just thinking about what you just said about kashrut and commandments.
Yeah.
If you don't have the rules, the recipe, whatever you want to call it, then we can't ourselves follow those rules, or we can't pass those rules down. If we don't do it right ourselves, then how are we going to teach the future?
This is interesting. Is there a difference between rules and instructions?
No. That was just the word that came to my head.
I'm curious. Is there a difference between rules and instruction?
Actually, yeah, somebody's giving you the instructions on how to do something. What's written on paper can be a combination of both, I guess.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking of like Legos, right? There are rules. There are instructions that we get for the Lego. My son very much, he loves Legos, love Legos, right? So we get these crazy instruction packets on how to build something. But then are there rules to follow when building Lego versus the instructions that you're given? I don't know. I'm going to play with that. I'm going to workshop that. David and then Risa. And then Lisa. We'll go David, Risa, Lisa. Wait. Oh, David, you're muted.
The Jews were not building a storage shed. They were building something that would house the Holy of Holies. They would build something where the Ark of the Covenant would be. They would build something where God's physical manifestation, the stone tablets, the 10 Commandments would be in the Ark of the Covenant. And so therefore, by making this so detailed, so special to exacting specifications, this shows honor, respect to God.
Okay, hold that thought. Because half of the Torah portion is not even about the Mishkan. It's about the clothing that the priests are supposed to wear.
And that goes
as detailed. So finish your thought, go.
Well, and that also is related, the details of everything that Aaron and the other priests are supposed to wear, the color similar to how the physical building is. that shows respect. That shows respect as well. They're
To
not
who?
walking.
To who? And what? And why?
Well, it shows respect to God, and we think, well, or honor to God, and well, what does God really care? But also, it shows it shows to us as well. If we go to a doctor who's dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, we might be a little skeptical of that doctor doing surgery on us. And so we have these ideas based upon our respective cultures of what things should look like, or based upon what things have been done, how people dress, how buildings are, like our temple. When we walk into Wilshire Boulevard Temple, there's so much details in there that were done when it was created, and then also with the renovation of it, every single detail. The stained glass was taken out piece by piece and cleaned and everything. So in any ways, that shows reverence, obedience. It makes something special. I think that's what it comes down to.
But what is, okay, for a structure, yes, but the clothing of a human, what are the, and based on your arguments there, which I love, for your ideas, what are like the fears that this reverence could play? Meaning, if we're so detailed, and it's about the clothing, and this is supposed to be showing reverence to God, but the person who is wearing it, and they are the receivers of this reverence, there's a fear, or there's the possibility that they're going to be taking it for themselves. Like, oh, it's not really reverence to God, but it's reverence to me. Like the doctor, it's not really reverence to the coat, but it's reverence to me.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, we're going to get to something interesting in a bit about that. Okay. David, did you finish your point? Great. Risa, and then Lisa.
It's interesting that the Women's Torah commentary,
please,
goes into a whole discussion of all the fabrics and everything that was used to clothe and to build made by the women. And the women did it with no comment in the text about the fact that that's who prepared the materials for Bezalel to do the artistry part of it. And the question is also, was Bezalel insulted because he was chosen because he was an artisan, and then he was cut off from his creativity? And there's a whole discussion and a poem that starts by Amy Blank that says, it was almost a disaster. Moses knew only my skill, my fingers fashioned by God. The great dreamer placed his dream into my hands, the given word that should become the given form. And then he goes on about the materials, and he says, I heard his words, that's Bezalel speaking, create the tent of meeting, house of God, words of command. Moses forgot, I was an artist.
That's beautiful. So it's like, yes, I am going to, you are the best creative mind of our century, and I want you to do that, but I want you to do it this way, and then this way. This is like micromanaging. I want to hire the best artist I can.
But don't let him be an artist.
But I'm going to micromanage this person.
Exactly. And when they weren't micromanaged, they came up with the golden calf.
Oh, stop it. Now you're taking us in that direction. Maybe because they were overly micromanaged, and then it's like you gave them too much freedom too quickly.
Too much freedom, and they didn't know what to do with it.
My goodness. All right, we'll get to that point. Lisa, go ahead.
Excuse me. Hi. So I have 2 points that I wrote down. One of them is the difference between, you asked instructions and rules.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about, again, growing up in my own house, somebody might give me an instruction in school, but if my father said it, that's a rule. That's a totally different level of authority. I'm just saying in your own life. So I think it has to do with who it's coming from. and the relationship. But the second thing I want to comment on is this business about the clothes, because I think it's more complicated than just setting a standard, which, by the way, as an aside, for example, when I see people as a theatrical person that go to Broadway shows in jeans, I am personally offended by that because, however, I'm personally offended, but at the same time, we have to consider that it's very possible people that go to the theater, perhaps they don't have anything else to wear. Perhaps it's not disrespect. Perhaps those are the clothes. I mean, I'll give you an example. When my mother died, a friend of the family of ours came to the funeral in jeans and open-toed shoes. This is the funeral at Hillside, right? My mother's 88 years old.
Mhm.
I was personally offended by that, but I have to think again about, even though, yes, it should look a certain way, and I'm raised with all of that, and I wore a dress and blah, 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 blah. I have to also think about the other side, which is, how important is that? She was there. You know, maybe she didn't make the best decision. I would have preferred her in a dress and high heels, but what am I going to do? Stone her and kill her because she came in jeans?
Yeah.
So I think, and also if you relate it to the golden calf thing, if we're going to be so entrenched in material detail, isn't that worshiping the golden calf? If somebody comes to a party dressed in a designer dress, a Valentino dress, and I come in a dress from Nordstrom, I mean, at the end of the day, who gives a shit?
Fascinating.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's a definitive. I'm saying that there's a lot more layers in that. And especially now, if we're supposed to welcome the stranger can come in anything. I mean, isn't that, and I know that's more of a New Testament concept, but isn't that the idea that the stranger could be the guy with no shoes on in front of my house yelling into the night with mental illness? So am I supposed to think he's wretched because he didn't grow up in a family where his parents bought him nice pants?
Yeah.
You know,
it's actually on commentary that I read about this passage as well. So it's even preceding Christianity, talking about when the priests actually entered the Holy of Holies, they had to be devoid of any fancy outfits. It had to be as simple as possible to create.
Isn't that Yom Kippur? Isn't that on Yom Kippur?
But that's also Yom
instruction?
Kippur. Yes, with the
white and no leather in the shoes and everything.
Correct. Well, that's also supposed to signify the death shroud.
Okay.
But yes, you're absolutely right.
So I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud about the complexities of it. I don't have an answer.
Yeah. No, this is beautiful. Even in our, you even see it from like East Coast to West Coast, right? The people that when you go to synagogue here, the way people are dressed in Los Angeles, for the most part, is going to be less formal than in, say, New York City or something like that. Or my wife, it drives her bananas. When she's from Omaha, Nebraska, she told me when she went to religious school every Sunday, she had to wear a dress. Her father made her wear a skirt or a dress to go to Sunday school. Here, we've got kids coming in their PJs, and that's fine because at least they're showing up, right? But so Stephanie, when she was like, you got to wear this. And even when we go to services, right, we have to, like, she makes sure our kids are sitting because there's a respect thing, but that kind of evolves. And then I don't know if any of you have ever been to a wedding in Israel. You go to a wedding in Israel, people are there in their jeans and their shirt with open shirt, no tie, nothing, everybody, just everybody there. Here, it's like, oh, I'm going to the black tie affair. I've got the black tie wedding, or I've got the suit and I've got the tuxedo and all that kind of stuff. There, you're like in your pants and your open shirt. So even there, right, you see that evolution. Now, this is, oh my goodness, look at all we got Rabbi David joining us on the Zoom. This is phenomenal. I'm going to go, we'll go Rabbi David's, we'll go Brad, and Lisa, is your hand still up?
No, sorry, it's not. Sorry.
Okay, we're going to go Risa and Stan, and then Brad.
You have to unmute.
I did.
She did. She's unmuted.
I'm unmuted. No, I just never dropped my hand down from the last time I spoke.
David, you're supposed to mention who's going to conduct the class next week.
What would you like to mention? Who's going to conduct the class next week? Ah, yeah. So if anybody, you get to on Saturdays with our Chevra Torah, where you get to hang out with Rabbi David's special treat Friday at noon next week, also with Rabbi David. Very exciting.
Put in a little story though, as long as the mic is open.
Yeah.
Years ago, when we moved from New York to Atlanta, I walked into the first Friday night services in a pantsuit. And the women went wild. You don't wear pants to synagogue in Atlanta. And I asked the question, why not? And the next week, every woman was in pantsuit.
Oh, because that was just what you did. They never questioned it.
They never questioned it.
My goodness. I mean, and that still happens today where some of my colleagues, right, go to their pulpits. Unfortunately, mostly this happens to women where the people will come up to them and say, your hemline is too short. You need to be wearing a dress. Why aren't you wearing stockings? Why aren't you, all these kind of things. It's like
Your stockings are the wrong color.
yeah.
Yeah.
Brad, then Merle.
Yeah, I'm sort of reflecting on Risa's comments a minute ago about artistry and creativity as exhibited in this passage. And, the fact that when we are creative, when we are artists, that seems to me when we're closest to God, in that God is the creator. God is the creator, and we are created in God's image. So when we are creating, when we are exhibiting artistry this way, it's our way of being closest to God and replicating him in our own human way. And here to see it detailed in this passage is a way of just showing our affinity with and closeness to God.
This is good. Okay, this is good. We're going to get to something. Thank you for that, Brad. We're going to get to something in a second in the last section of the Parsha, which I found something that just kind of blew my mind, and that's part of the idea. Merle, go.
So, I'm thinking of all these instructions and whatever all these instructions about dress are, whether it's respect or whatever all this clothing means. I look at my granddaughters who have to wear uniforms to school. Uniforms to the extent where the headband has to the socks have to be the right color. They can't be too high. But then I look at the kids waiting for school bus that go to their school or any other private school, and they're wearing the uniform, but they're wearing a $300 pair of shoes. So the uniforms, I always thought the purpose was so that everyone was alike and not distracted by what other people were wearing. Okay, they can't even wear jewelry to school. So unless it's a medical ID bracelet, and there's instructions on that. But what's the deal? Why is it permitted in my head? And it kind of goes along with how people dress for synagogue. Why do they get to wear these expensive shoes that defeat the purpose of everyone looking alike when some other kid can't afford those shoes, or their parents won't buy them for them, whatever it is?
So is it the nature of humans to want to not just find ways to express themselves, but to one up another? Like, if that's the key, right?
I think that's part of it.
Status. Because this is also this, it made me think of something. So I think of that in terms of like cars in Los Angeles, right? Is like a status thing for people to do the cars or whatnot. But in New York City, and one of Rabbi David's former congregants told me this from when he was in New York City, nobody drives cars, right? Nobody really has cars like that. So what would they do to show status was like different types of watches. A friend of mine was telling me that they get the more expensive the watch showed this different kind of status. That's fascinating, Merle. That's interesting. That's interesting. There's a line between, okay, I've given you these details of the uniform, and then how do you want to show your own individuality within uniform versus how I'm going to show off. I'm wearing uniform, but I'm going to show off by wearing these $300 shoes. Fascinating.
Right.
Lisa, is that a new hand?
So fast. So yeah, so growing up, I went to, it's no longer in existence. It's now Harvard Westlake, but it was
Yeah.
Westlake School
You
for
went to
Girls.
Westlake School, yeah.
Very traditional. I wore a uniform, and I want to comment on the shoe thing because a part of what that is especially in a, you know, in a democratic society, and particularly in Los Angeles, where we are loathsome to give up our entire freedom. You can only litigate so much to parents, meaning they're not going to buy, and they didn't. I mean, I remember girls coming with Ralph Lauren. I wasn't wealthy, but they came with the Ralph Lauren loafers. And, you know, all a 13-year-old girl needs to see is somebody else's shoes. And you're right back in that. They have it, I don't. And, you know, even though it was very strict about uniforms, but the thing is, they can only direct so much, or they come off as dictators, and then the rich parents are pissed off. So that's just a literal response. And I'm sure there is a relationship to the Parshat, but that's a literal response to what the people that run those schools have to deal with. You know,
So-
they can only say so much.
Right.
And then it's like, we can't be bothered anymore. Just whatever, put some loafers on and shut up. I
So
mean,
this
that's
is-
pretty much the game with that.
Fabulous. So this all, okay, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead. And then we're going to move to a new point.
I just was thinking about, as Lisa was making that point, about the old photos from mainland China where everybody dressed alike. And that was essentially dictated by the government, but there was no individuality. It was, you wore that, I think they called them the Mao coats or the Mao uniform. And, you know, how was that different? Just a thought. No answers, just a thought.
Though my 14-year-old daughter, this school year was last school year, first school year where they implemented not so much uniform, but branded merchandise from the school that you had to wear. She's so thankful for it. She's so thankful for that uniformity. Put the word uniform right in there, because it takes away a lot of the stress of trying to figure out, well, what am I supposed to wear today to look good? This. She's like, this is what I got to wear. I'm going to wear this. It's going to be great. Right. So there you have a little bit of the shoe thing and whatnot, but it also takes away a lot of stress. This uniformity you don't have to necessarily think about it. But here's the point I'm going to, look at our time. Okay. I'm going to make a couple of points. Check this out. So this is also interesting when it talks about the clothing, and then that evolved might not be the right word. Does anybody know the name Yochanan ben Zakkai? Yochanan ben Zakkai. Did anybody ever heard of that guy? Yochanan ben Zakkai. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about this guy. So we're at the destruction of the Second Temple, right? The destruction of the Second Temple. And here it goes. Judaism as was known was going to be over. And you had two choices. Well, if we can't adapt, well, we had a good run, we're done. Or we have this other guy, Yochanan ben Zakkai, who says, give me Yavne. Okay, you take Jerusalem, fine, but give me Yavne. What's Yavne? It's another little fabulous city, small city-ish, town city-ish, also in Israel, really beautiful town. And he's like, we're going to go there and we're going to do Judaism a bit differently. Again, this is very general, what I'm saying, it's simple terms, but we're going to go do Judaism differently. We're getting rid of the priesthood, getting rid of the sacrifice. Now we're going to the different ideas about sacrifice are going to evolve into our prayers. And instead of the priests wearing these things, what do we do? What do we adorn now with fancy outfits in our tradition? What do we adorn with a fancy outfit?
Torah,
yes, the Torah. We adorn the Torah with the fancy. It's got the fancy coats, right? The same fancy coat that they were wearing. Now we put it on the Torah. The fancy hat. We, instead of putting it on their heads, we put it on the poles from the Torah, right? The rimonim, we put those in. We put the breastplates, right? We put the yad, we put the this. We're adorning that with the jewelry and the fancy clothing. So it's like it evolved into that, right? We didn't get rid of it. We're changing it. This is still the recipe, but it evolved into that. I just wanted to throw that one point out there. Hi, Lindsay, good to see you. But here's the other thing I want to talk about this I found fascinating. And here's what I want you to listen to. I'm going to read all of 40. I'm going to read the whole thing to you in a second, all of 40. And I want, while you're listening to all of 40, I want you to think of these two ideas. One, why is it that the building of the Mishkan is so detailed and that importance versus the laws of kashrut are not detailed in Torah? Are not detailed in Torah. The full understanding of the mitzvot also not detailed in Torah, right? We just have the listing of the commandments. We were speaking specifically of the 10 commandments, not detailed on how to actually go about doing it. Not in Torah. Kashrut, not in the Torah specifically how to go about doing it like we have, but the building of the Mishkan and the way that we're going to sacrifice is very detailed. Think about the juxtaposition of those two and what I'm about to read to you. Okay, I'm going to share the screen so you can see what I'm looking at. All right, here we go. This is crazy. And God spoke to Moses saying, on the first day of the first month, you shall let's do that. I'm going to say it again. This part's slow. And Adonai spoke to Moses saying, on the first day of the first month, you shall set up the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. Place there the ark of the pact and screen off the ark with the curtain. Bring in the table and lay out its due setting. Bring in the lampstand and light its lamps and place the gold altar of incense before the ark of the pact. Then put up the screen for the entrance of the tabernacle. You shall place the altar of burnt offering before the entrance of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. Place the laver between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it. Set up the enclosure round about and put in place the screens for the gate of the enclosure. You shall take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and all that is consecrated in its furnishings, and so that shall be holy. Then anoint the altar of burnt offering and all of its utensils to consecrate the altar, so that the altar shall be most holy. And anoint the laver and stand to consecrate it. You shall bring Aaron and his sons forward to the entrance of the tent of meeting and wash them with the water. Put the sacral vestments on Aaron and anoint him and consecrate him, and may serve me as priest. Then bring his sons forward, put tunics on them and anoint them as you have anointed their father, that they may serve me as priests, and their anointing shall serve them for everlasting priesthood throughout the ages. This Moses did, just as Adonai had commanded him, so he did. Now, what's the next line? I know I'm saying that quickly because check it out. Now, the next line says, right into the next line, in the first month of the second year, on the first of the month, the tabernacle was set up. Moses set up the tabernacle, placing its sockets, setting it up, the planks, inserting the bars, and erecting its posts. He spread the tabernacle, placing the covering of the tent of the hoop, just as God had commanded Moses. He took the pact and placed it in the ark. He fixed the poles in the ark. Blah, 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 blah. For the interest of time, I'm going to tell you, it's the exact same thing. It just completely gave the detail the exact same way it said to do it this first time, the second time. But how much time in between passed? How much time in between passed?
Year.
From Shabbat.
An entire year. An entire year. An entire year of life. An entire year of Shabbat. An entire year of experience. An entire year of interactions. An entire year of love. An entire years of hate. An entire year of actually living your life passed in between these two statements. So here we are talking about the importance of detail and getting it right and setting the foundation, right? It's got to be, but where's the detail and rules about what it means to actually live one's life, right? They give us these lines, don't boil the kid in the mother's milk. It says, don't kill. But what do all those things mean? We have to go out there and figure that out for ourselves, practice, trying in, actually living the life. But then it's giving us these details, boom, 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 boom. It's like the details are so important, but if the details are so important, how come we know nothing about what happened to these people for an entire year? Nothing. That is the cuckoo idea that I want to leave you on. Because it's 1 o'clock. We're done. Oi. Bananas. All right. Did I stop the share?
Excuse me, why did the calendar say that you're starting at 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
Yes.
Calendar said I'm starting
The
at 1.
calendar said 1 o'clock.
I have no idea.
1
Pina.
o'clock
So I
here.
missed the whole hour. Wow.
I have no idea. Let me see what it says right here. On the email, it says 12 p.m. I just looking at the email. I'm sorry. Sorry, Safta. Sorry.
On the calendar, it said 1. Sorry, too. Okay.
Wonderful question. What's going on with that tail over there?
I don't know. I'm going to
Rabbi
watch it on YouTube. That's okay.
Rabbi David, what's up with that tail? Wonderful to see everybody. Wonderful discussion. Fabulous ideas. I want to
Thank
wish
you.
everyone Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat
Shabbos.
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
and
shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you
All
so
of us.
much.
Wonderful
great
job,
weekend.
Sorry, I
everyone.
missed you.
Wonderful week.
Bye, everybody. Wonderful job.
Thank you,
Bye.
Rabbi. Bye.